Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. We are going to be taking a tour through the Librarian's Guide to Loving Libby, or perhaps I should say a librarian, because I did write this myself. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Anna, and I manage adult programs for the Lake Bluff Library. However, tonight I am here in one of my secondary capacities, which is managing our Libby, our OverDrive purchasing of books. OverDrive is the company that owns Libby, so we buy our books through them to make them available to you in Libby. I hope all of you got that reminder email and had a chance to set your devices up in advance. However, as you know, this program is being recorded. It will be available to all of you after the event. So if I'm moving too quick for you to follow along, no pressure. You can go back and review any of the steps and tips that we talk about tonight. And in fact, I will be moving very quickly to get through all of this material. So if you don't want to even try, if you just want to sit back, let me do the hard work, I am okay with that. That is what I am here for tonight. So if you do have any problems with Libby, with Hoopla, Canopy, Flipster, all of that, you're probably going to be referred to me because those are all my domain here. But we do have many staff that are able to assist you with that, and I'll talk more about that later. Before we get into the 10 tips for tonight, I do want to take a moment to briefly, very quickly review how to set Libby up on a device, so that if you are a new user, if you get a new phone, if you have a secondary device you want to set Libby up on, all of that is available to you. And if you are not doing that, pardon me when I try to get my meeting controls to obey. All right, there we go. If you are not in need of a refresher, feel free to take a break here and come back in 3 to 5 minutes and we'll have moved on. So tonight, I am going to be demonstrating on the libbyapp.com website, and libbyapp.com looks identical to what you should see on a phone, on a tablet device of any sort, Android, Apple, Kindle Fire, all of those have Libby, and it's going to look the same. The buttons will be in the same places, the menu layout is the same. So it should look exactly what you are looking at, like exactly what you're looking at. If for any reason it doesn't, please do let me know at the end of the program, because I will be very curious to learn what type of device you're using. So we are going to really quick go through this. When you open up Libby for the first time, it's going to ask if you have a library card, and I really hope all of you can say yes. If not, what are you doing? Get over here. And we are going to help Libby find our library. It does have a guess my library function down here, and that uses your approximate location, which for me usually ends up somewhere in the middle of Wisconsin. So I'm going to use search by library just to speed things up, and we're going to do our zip code. It's the fastest way to find us, 60044. This first result right here, Digital Library of Illinois, Lake Bluff Public Library, is what we're looking for. This is a really great moment to review that digital resources are exclusive to your home library. They are not a shared resource where you can use your card at another library. So you might notice down here that Libertyville's Cook Memorial Public Library has its own entry. That is because they have their own collection. They are not part of the Digital Library of Illinois Consortium. So if your card does not say Lake Bluff Library on it, unfortunately, you are not going to be able to access our digital materials. Lake Forest Library is a member of the Digital Library of Illinois Consortium that has slightly different collection, which you'll understand later on. And there are some libraries that are not Libby users, so they have other types of e-material apps. If you are not a Lake Bluff Library user, I hope this video is still helpful to you with Libby, but you are going to use a slightly different process to get signed up. So once we're into the Digital Library of Illinois, it's going to ask if I'd like to sign in with my library card. I'm going to say yes, absolutely. And oh my, look at this. I have to choose from over 100 libraries in Illinois that are all part of this consortium. So why is that? Well, the great thing about this consortium is that it is constantly growing. We are constantly gaining new members, and that means we're constantly gaining more money for more books, as well as more shared materials, because we are able to share books between different libraries. And that means a broader, deeper, more diverse collection for all of you. All right, so we're going to put in that barcode number, all of the barcode, no spaces, no nothing, and hit sign in. Look at that. So Your card is not going to have your name on it. It is going to come up as linked card the first time you use it, and you can choose to rename it to whatever you want it to be. So if you are working on a shared device, such as an iPad that has multiple family members using it, you're going to want to label those so that you always know whose card is whose. Additionally, Libby allows you to have cards from multiple libraries. So if you have multiple residences and each of those residences has a library that uses Libby, you can register both of those cards, and Libby will even assist you with borrowing books that have the shortest wait time, automatically choosing the library that has the least number of holds. We're not going to go over multiple libraries much tonight because I don't have a second library card to demonstrate with. So once we are into Libby, this is what it looks like. And that takes care of our brief tour. For help with borrowing books, placing holds, returning items, we have some instructions I'm going to show you how to access later for some of those basic things. Tonight is going to really focus on the in-depth secret tips and tricks that I know to make Libby work the best possible way for you with your device. So we're going to start with a review of the Libby menu, which is down at the bottom of your screen. These 5 icons I'm going to be referencing throughout the program for where we find certain material and certain features. So I want to be sure we're all on the same page as we get started. On the left over here, we have our magnifying glass. This is our search page. It works exactly how it sounds, like any search engine such as Google. You type in the author or the book or the series you're looking for. It is a smart search, so it's going to give you suggestions. And it will even tell you over on the side here if that suggestion is for an author, a title, or a series, which can be important because sometimes the series title and the title of the first book are the same, and you don't want to be searching for the first book when you're trying to find the second. So we get our search results, and we'll talk more about how to filter these later, but essentially exactly what you'd expect. It shows everything that is by that author. Our second in icon here is this little building. It has some columns and some steps, and it looks like a grand old library that is nothing like our library building built in the 1970s, but that's okay. It is meant to represent all libraries. I'm going to skip this. We'll talk about that later. So when you're in your library page, this is where you're going to browse. Remember that term browse. I'm going to use it throughout the program to reference things. And when you are browsing, that is when you come visit us at the library or on the digital screen, and you look through books and you find what you want to read. And we have these lists and guides that Libby and we curate to help you find things. And an ad for Canopy, because that is now an OverDrive product for movies. So this is where you're going to go when you're looking for ideas, something to read, something to enjoy. Our middle icon is the menu, the 3 lines here. This is the internal Libby menu, not to be confused with the menu at the bottom of your screen. This is where you access your cards, your settings, and your support. We're going to talk about some of those later on. The 4th icon, this little stack of books, is exactly what it sounds like, a bookshelf. This is where you're going to access your loans, your holds, and your tags, which we will review at a later time. I know I'm saying that a lot right now. I promise we'll get to all of it. The final icon is your timeline. There is very good chance you have never used this. I run into a lot of people who never even knew what this did, this little clock here. It's your timeline. It tracks everything you place on hold or borrow or return, and it'll tell you when you did it and in what order. And it's a great way when you're filling out that Goodreads goal at the end of the year to go back and see what you actually read. All right, we're going to move on to browsing with filters. You remember that browsing word? We're going back to the library. Filters are a fabulous thing for Libby because we now have over 100,000 items in our Libby collection. That's a lot to go through. It's about twice the physical library. So these buttons at the top that say newest, popular, random, available now, these are examples of filters that Libby offers you. If you are like me in an instant gratification kind of mood, you're going to want to select that available now, and it will only show you titles that you can borrow right this instant, no waiting. Then it gives you some format options. So if you're an audiobook user like I am, you can choose just audiobooks. And did you know Libby has magazines? A lot of people don't know this, but Libby has a huge magazine collection, over 4,000 unique titles. And that includes at least half of the ones we have physically in print here at the library. So now we've narrowed it down to just audiobooks that I can borrow. But we're going to go further. We're going to open this little side menu up here with the 3 descending lines. And this gives me even more options. So if I've browsed audiobooks in Libby before and I want to be sure I'm finding only stuff that's new that I haven't seen, I can choose date added, not to be confused with release date, which would be publication date. And that will narrow it down for me so that I'm finding first the most recent editions. We've already got availability selected. Audience, good note here is that regular adult books is called general content. Don't know why juvenile and young adult get age groups and this gets general content, but that's the way it is. Subject, it gives you 5 options that are the most, which have the most books. But if you click this more button, you get this huge list and you can pick out all different kinds of subjects. You can pick multiple subjects. For now, I'm just going to select mystery, because that'll narrow my options. And then we're going to scroll down a little bit more and you see we've got this search within results. That's how you could type in a keyword if you were looking for, like, say, mysteries with dogs. And then language, we have some Spanish collection titles. Mostly though, it's going to be English language. That's just the way our consortium is right now. I hope that will build more someday. For now, we're going to stop here with our 2,500 plus title selection. And you can see how quickly that narrowed my options down for me to just adult mystery fiction that I can borrow this instant. All right, so with filters, if you add a filter you don't like, or if it gets too narrow and you need to broaden it, you can remove a filter just by tapping on it and scrolling down and tapping the remove filter button, and it goes away. If there is a filter that you want to stay there beyond this browsing session, because these do reset every time you close and open the app, you can choose available, you can choose to pin the filter. So I'm going to click available now, pin filter. It hops over here with this little push pin. That means that that filter is going to stay there until I remove it. So you'll see later that it hangs on for a while. And if you're having trouble finding something, check if you have any filters pinned. Libby will usually also prompt you if there's something a filter is hiding from you in a search it thinks you want to see. It's really helpful like that. All right, so now we are going to talk about changing your loan period. This is quite possibly the most important item on the list tonight to me, because I see so many people borrow a book for 14 days, which is Libby's default, and then have to get back in the holds line at the end because it wasn't enough time. And I think a lot of people don't know that they can change it to 21 days for books and audiobooks, which is so much nicer because maybe that extra week would let you finish it instead of having to wait a month and try to remember where you were. So we're going to go to borrow on A Murder of Crows. And this is your borrowing page. Every time you borrow an item, it's going to show you what you are borrowing, where you are borrowing it from. So if you have multiple libraries, it'll list which library. If you have multiple cards, this is where it'll let you choose for sure which card you want to use. And it gives you a nice little reminder of how many things you have borrowed from your limit. So your loans limit is 10 items, your holds is 12, and it shows you right here how many you have out at a time. And then this last line, this borrowing for 21 days, this is a clickable item. So you can tap on that and open up a menu where you can choose from 3 lending period options. Keep in mind, these lending periods work for books and audiobooks. I believe magazines do max out at 14 days though, but maybe I'm wrong about that. All right, so I have 21 days selected. The great thing about this is that it will remember for you, even across devices, what you have chosen. So you only have to choose 21 days once for books and once for audiobooks and whatever you want for magazines. And then if you never want to change it again, you will always get that maximum lending period. So I'm going to stick with 21 days. I'm not actually going to borrow this item, so I want to leave it available for anybody else. But that is the nice, easy way to change your loan period. I want you to remember though, this is the only way to change your loan period. I often get people asking me, where in my settings do I go to change my loan period? Libby does not offer that in the settings. It is only during the process of borrowing an item. I don't know why, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but that's where it's at. And that is if you use the help features later we'll talk about, they're going to direct you how to do this again. So if you forget, no big deal. It's one of the most commonly asked questions of Libby. Okay, tip number 4, we are going to talk about when to place holds. So when do we place holds on items? This may seem like a personal preference. It absolutely is. However, I hear so frequently from people that they don't want to borrow anything on Libby or place any holds because it always says this several months wait. And they don't want to wait in a line of 65 or 70 people to get this brand new book. I get it. I totally get it. It is a really long wait time for something, especially a digital material that you want that instant gratification. But I want to talk to you tonight about why you should place that hold anyways. Do it because that tells me on the other end who's waiting for it. And what a lot of people don't know is that in addition to this giant consortium of 100+ libraries that buys us books, we also have a budget line here at Lake Bluff Library that is specifically for Lake Bluff card holders. So we purchase books in Libby that are copies exclusive to our card holders. The people from the consortium don't get priority on those. They don't get to borrow those depending on how we share them. So if you are in a line of 70 people, but you're one of 3 or 4 Lake Bluff patrons waiting, on my end, I can see that and I can say, oh, well, we need to own that book just for our patrons because there's enough interest. And then suddenly you're in a line of 3 people and it maybe takes a month to get the book instead of, well, Libby says several months when it gives up calculating. So who knows how long that line actually is. But I essentially want to encourage you, please always place holds. You have 12 holds. People, I have never run into somebody who's run out of hold spaces because they had too many things on hold. And I hear now from patrons that they do frequently get items sooner than expected. I hear from my own friends and family sometimes. So my book just came in suddenly. Did you have something to do with that? Yes, I did. I do not know who's borrowing what, but we are fulfilling holds constantly. Please use them. That's my job, is to buy you your books that you want. All right. Tip number 5 is also related to holds. This is about managing your hold suspensions. Hold suspensions are one of the least intuitive concepts in libraries. Like, really gives me a headache, gives everyone a headache. So I want to make sure that everyone understands how those work so that you are using this in a way that is helpful and not harmful. There are 2 types of hold suspensions in Libby. They work the same way, but I want you to think about them as automatic and manual. When you have a hold on an item and it comes in, Libby sends you a notice and asks you if you want to borrow the item. It does not automatically borrow it for you. If you do not respond to that notice within 72 hours, if you just ignore it, Libby is going to automatically put a 7-day suspension on your hold, which essentially means they say, okay, you aren't ready for this right now. We're going to give it to the next person in line. And then after your suspension is over and after there's another title available, we'll try to give it to you again. The thing people don't understand usually about hold suspensions is this is not an exact science. It's not because it says suspended 3 days that on day 4 I'm going to get it. It means that after that 3rd day, once the suspension's over, and a copy becomes available, it's going to arrive. So that could be like, let's say I miss my hold, it gets sent to the next person and it's a 7-day automatic suspension. Well, they might take 3 weeks to get through that book, so I don't get it for 3 weeks. So I feel like I need to drop in here. Suspension sounds like a bad word because they use it as a really bad word when you get suspended from school. It's not a bad thing. Think of it like a pause button. I think Libby actually says deliver later for that. So those automatic suspensions, it's going to do that once for 7 days, and then it'll try to give it to you again when the next copy is available. You will keep your place in line during that time. And if you ignore that notice a second time, unfortunately, Libby is set up where it's going to say, well, we think you must not want this anymore because you've ignored it twice. You probably already bought the book, or you got the hard copy from the library. We're going to take you out of the holds line because there's other people waiting, and we also don't want to be leaving one of your holds booked when you don't need that item. If that happens, it's not a bad mark against you. It's not anything terrible. You just have to get back in the holds line and you do lose your place, which is why one of my tips later is going to be about how to avoid missing those notifications. Okay, so I've talked a lot about that automatic system. Manual hold suspensions are when you respond to that notification or you go into your holds page here and choose to manually suspend a hold. So if I go to manage hold and suspended hold, I'm going to pull up the exact same page that you will see when you respond to that notification from Libby, because you're going to do that. You're going to respond and not lose your book, please. This is your little bar. You slide it to the left for shorter and to the right for longer. And the max is 180 days, but I think you can also maybe, I think you can manually just like suspend it until further notice. But if you wanted to undo a suspension, you just drag it all the way back over to the left for active and click that update hold. And suddenly, if I go back to my holds over here, no suspension anymore. I am the first, no, I guess I'm the second in line, but it says about 2 weeks wait because there's 2 copies. So I will get that as soon as it comes in. Manual hold suspensions do not count against you for those 2 strikes in Libby. So if you get that notification and you say, I'm not ready, I have 4 other books I'm reading, I thought this was going to take longer, you're going to give it to me later, that's fine. You can do that over and over and over again, and it will never lose your place in line. It won't, kick you out of the holds line, as long as you always respond to those notifications and tell it however long you want. Okay, before we move on from hold suspensions, the last thing I want to say is please do not ever suspend a hold for an item that you want to start reading within the next 3 weeks. Sometimes people feel bad about borrowing something they're not sure they're going to get to. Don't. It's okay if it sits on your shelf for a couple days and then later you decide, I don't have time for this, I'm going to return it early. That's a thing you can do. It won't hurt anyone. We would much, much rather that you get a chance at reading that item you want than pass it on to the next person and regret it and have to wait a long time to get it again. Okay. Promise my diatribe on managing holds is over. We are going to move on to some new features Libby has added. These are called the Deep Search and Notify Me features. They were added back in March to supplement a feature of the legacy OverDrive app, which had this recommend to library option, which was how you could find titles the library didn't have in its OverDrive collection, but that were available for us to add, and you would send us a little note saying, please get me, get me. So the way you do this is you're going to search for an item that you want. So I'm going to search for an author that I know we don't have all of her items in the collection. And all right, so this is what I was talking about. You see this available now filter? It's still pinned here in my search, even though we did that under browse in the library section. So to be sure that I'm not missing the book I'm looking for, I want to remove that filter. And then I'm looking for an audiobooks. We're going to narrow that down. The one I'm looking for isn't here though. So if I get to the bottom of my search and don't see it, Libby helpfully provides this little deep searching is available in the filters of this list. So sure, you can go all the way back to the top of the page and open your filters, or you can just click on it and it opens your filters for you. And we're going to scroll down and it now has this deep search filter here. If you turn that on, what this is going to do is it's going to show you more books. So now we have 21 titles instead of 7. And it's going to show you books that the library does not currently own for you to borrow, but that OverDrive does sell to libraries to make available. So where it says notify me, this is the feature that's going to allow you to not only recommend it to your library, but also tag it for yourself so that if the library ever does add it, you get a notification on your device that says, hey, this is here, do you want to borrow it? So I'm going to add a notify me tag. And on our end, just like when you place a hold, we get data from OverDrive about which items people are using the notify me tag on, and it'll show me, like 4 people want this book. Okay, great, we're going to get that book. All right. So that one's pretty straightforward, self-explanatory. The only thing to remember is that place hold and notify me are 2 different things. I know notify me kind of sounds like tell me when it's available. It's a little complicated. We're going to move on to personalizing your notifications, which is how you will make sure you never miss those holds coming in or miss those notifications that a book has been added that you wanted. We're going back to our center menu here, and we're going to scroll down to our settings. And then we're going to scroll to manage notifications. So Libby has 3 options for notifications. The first green option here, the email notice, is what it calls it on a computer. But for most of you on a tablet or a mobile, that is a push notification that's going to show up on your home screen, your lock screen, however you set up things on your device. Make a sound, not, you can choose all of that in your device settings. The second option is this yellow menu badge. That is a little icon. You can see it down here where it says 2. That shows up only in the Libby app. So if you don't want to see anything about these notifications unless you're already in Libby and using it, then you can set it at yellow. Red is ignore. If you never want to hear about this from Libby, you're tired of the notifications, leave me alone. I feel that way a lot when I look through my email and have to unsubscribe to things. So when I help people set up their device for the first time with Libby, I always recommend putting all 5 of these top notifications at green. The reason for that is these are the ones that if you don't react, something you don't want to happen might happen. So the first one at the top there is loan expiring. Libby is very nice and sends you a reminder 72 hours before an item is due, so that you can renew it or place a hold on it if it's not available, if someone else is waiting, or try to finish that last chapter. You've got 3 days. Hopefully you can do it. Loan expired is your second little reminder that a book has been automatically returned. This can be nice just to know, oh, hey, that's off my shelf. Or if you weren't done with it, this is a great reminder to go in and place that hold or borrow it again if you didn't pay attention to the loan expiring. Gives you a couple chances for that, which I love. All right, if you keep no other notification green, please keep this one. This is your hold ready. This is what I was talking about, where it's going to tell you that your book is available and you have 72 hours to respond to that notification. So this is really, really helpful. Make it loud, make it prominent, pay attention to that one. Hold lapsing is, again, your second chance with that. So 24 hours typically before your hold is going to expire and move to the next person, you will get a reminder. Hey, this is waiting for you. Do you want to borrow it? And you can respond again there. And finally, hold lapsed is when your time with that hold has expired. It has moved on to the next person or been rescheduled or removed. And this is like kind of your third catch there for if you missed the first 2, you can use this to go in. You can manually remove that 7-day suspension Libby automatically added. You can edit those. It's not like it's 7 days and you're stuck with it. You can turn it off so you get it as soon as it's possibly available. Or you can get back in the hold sign, unfortunately, if you did miss both notifications from Libby. All right, the bottom 3 here are a little less dire. The first one is that notify me title notification, which we talked about with the deep search and notify me. This is that little bell icon and how it tells you about those. So I usually will turn those green because if I've marked a title that I want to be notified, it's usually because I'm really interested in it. Notify me author, exactly as it sounds. I read a book by one author and Libby wants to tell me about every other book by that author as it gets added. That gets a lot for me because I'm a voracious reader, so I tend not to use those. But if you are not, if you really only read books by authors you're super passionate about, then sure, maybe you want to know every time a book by them is added to Libby. And the last is series. This one does tend to be a little more, people want it. If you're reading a series, you want to know when the next book comes out. But again, do what works for you with these. Set these up so that you are getting as much or as little information from Libby as you want. Okay. Tip number 8 is tags. Tags are very fun. I love them. They're located over in our bookshelf here. And here's a great tip. Anytime you go to open one of these icons, if you're not on the home page, just click it or tap it a second time and it'll bring you back to the home page. So you don't have to use that back button a bunch of times. So I'm going to go over to our tags, which has this little balloon because Libby wants me to know about it. So Libby has set up 2 tags already for me on this account. These are smart tags. The difference between a smart tag and a regular tag means that a smart tag is smart. It either does stuff automatically for you or it has programming associated with it. So for example, your smart tag borrowed, anytime you borrow a book, it's added to this tag. If you're currently wondering, why do I need this if I have my timeline? That's a great question. This is a filterable list. So if we go to our timeline, you see you get loans and holds, and oh, is this filters? No, this is some kind of activity graph. I don't really have filter options in here. But in your borrowed tags list, you can filter by audiobooks, magazines, available, title, oldest, newest, etc. So that can be nice if you are trying to find that book that I can't remember the title or the author, but I know the cover was blue and it had a character in their 50s in it. This is where you find that book. All right, we're going to go back. And then the smart tag notify me is that book we marked earlier with the little bell. All of them are added to this list. So you can go through now and then look at it and say, oh, I already read that. I can take the notify me tag off of that. or I'm tired of waiting for that. I guess I'm going to go bug the library about it. That's what we're here for. All right, we're going to go through how to add a regular tag. So what do most people use tags for? If you're a Goodreads user, these are your shelves. This is how you mark your to-be-reads, your TBRs, or the things you read and loved and want more of that author. Or if you're like me and you sometimes have more fun browsing for the books than reading the books, you have 5 different lists for all the different genres. And at any point, you can go through and find what you're in the mood for. So I'm just going to make a little bookshelf one here, like a to-be-read shelf. You can add a description if it's not obvious. Usually it's obvious. So we're going to click create. And then we talked about this as a regular tag. So that's checked off. The other options here, we've seen the notify me and borrowed were automatically created. Sampled will also be automatically created once you have sampled, either read or listened to a book. It adds all of your sampled titles to this list so that if you go back later and you're like, what was that one I started but didn't borrow? You can find it right there. And then we're going to talk about your wish list in a little bit. All right, so we're going to choose regular tag. We've got this regular tag set up. And then to add a tag to an item, we can go back over to our library and our browsing, and we're going to just click that tag button, and then we're going to check which ones we want it to be in. You can also uncheck them. So if you add it to the wrong list, you can remove it. I tend to have a to-be-read list, and then when I read it, I move it to a read list. All right, and then it just shows up right here. You can tag multiple tags if you want to, as many as you want. And that is nice and simple. If we go back to our shelf and our tag, and we open that tag up, it's going to list for us everything we have. And again, you can filter it by format and availability. So if you have a to-be-read list and you're in Libby and you want to read something right now, you open that list, you click available now, and then you have your options. It's beautiful like that. All right, now we're going to talk about that wish list that you just saw teased a little bit. So if you are a new Libby user and you go to your center menu icon, and we're going to click it twice to get back to that home screen. And we're going to go to the second page of these notifications up here. It's going to ask if I'd like to sync the titles in my OverDrive wish lists to a tag. So if anyone out there is a legacy OverDrive user and you used the OverDrive app, or if you're a Kindle user and you use the dlil.overdrive.com website to borrow books and then send them to your Kindle through Amazon, the wish list in that platform is what it's talking about. You can sync the titles from that wish list to Libby so that everything transfers over, you have access, and that's nice and simple. So we're just going to click sync wish lists. And my wish lists were created in another OverDrive app, and I can sync them all to a single tag in Libby. And I can either choose an existing tag or I can create a new one. So I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to call it wish list because that's nice and easy. Click create. And let's see what it finds. This is a demo card, so I'm curious what was tagged in the past. Oh, and it's going to be a little slow on me. All right, there we go. So we got 3 items that at some point during a demonstration we had marked on our wish list in OverDrive. And look at that, they're even all available to borrow. How lovely. Okay, so our final 10th tip of the night is something exclusively built for Lake Bluff patrons by yours truly. This is a list in our little library browsing function over here. You're going to click it a second time to get back to the home page. So on your home page of Libby here, you're going to see this first list pinned at the top. And I can't promise this will exist forever because it's kind of a new thing. But this is your adult new releases at and it trails off, but it says Lake Bluff Library, I promise. And these are new releases that are also available in print here at the library. They are adult fiction. So when our adult fiction order gets all into the system and that collection developer gives me her list, I then go in and add what we have of those titles into Libby in this list so that you have a nice, easy way to access some of the brand new books, the ones that are super popular, that are getting checked out. And this list is automatically sorted all the time for the available items to show up first. However, you're going to notice right now, that's only 3 out of 168 titles that are available right now. Yes, these are, like we talked about, they're the big reads. They're what everybody's reading. They're the ones that have those holds lines that are 70 people, 100 people, 200 people. If you're Prince Harry, 1,000 people long. So remember, we talked about place those holds anyways, and that's a great result. But if you're looking for something faster than even placing those holds and hoping that we get a copy, these are all here at the library. So if you're a print reader in addition to digital and you feel like swinging by, there's a good chance that either these are already on the shelf waiting for you or the holds line is a lot longer. So let's look down here a little bit. Let's see, we've got, anybody read Marie Benedict? She's been pretty big. So her new book, The First Ladies, historical fiction, has 202 people waiting on 11 copies. That's a long holds line. But if we go over here to the Lake Bluff Library page and we search for The First Ladies, that book is available in our new fiction section upstairs right this minute. Even the audiobook and the large print are all here waiting, wanting to be checked out and read. So if you were in a hurry, you could hop over and get that instead of waiting in that holds line. And that is why I curate that list to help promote some of our new titles that are sitting on the shelf wanting a little bit of love, a little bit of attention. All right, that takes me to the end of our 10 tips for Libby tonight. Before we move on to Q&A, I want to run through a few of your resources beyond what we talked about this evening. The first is the Libby Help In app. So if we go to our menu page here and we scroll down under the help and support, we have get some help. Sounds a little aggressive, but I promise it really is helpful. If we type into the how we can help bar, the subject of what we're looking for, let's say I need help with my loans. Not the student ones, the book ones. We get some options here, such as, remember, changing your loan period. That thing I talked about, that you go looking for your settings and it's not there. They have this nice little paragraph of exactly how to change it. So if you forget, you can just search it right up. All right, we're going to go back. And then on this page, under the search bar, they also have, a contact and a frequently asked questions and even a suggestion box. So if you think up a really great idea for Libby, and trust me, I've had a couple, you can pop it in there, send it off to them and give them some feedback. The second resource I want to tell you about are our Libby video tutorials. And I'm not talking about the one I'm making right now, though that will be available and on our page. If we go back to the Lake Bluff Library homepage, I hope you're all familiar with how to navigate to our digital collections. If you go to Explore and eBooks and Downloadables, this is our page where we talk about all our digital collections, and we have those instructions I mentioned at the beginning for the really basic stuff, how to create your account, borrow an item, return an item, place a hold, how many holds, how many borrows do I get, etc. for each type of device. We do create these. They're based on the guides that all of the companies make, but we put them all in one place for each device so that you have all of the instructions together. And you can see our different platforms here. Each one we have links to the help pages, and if they're available, to video tutorials. So Libby down at the bottom here, this Libby help link is to the web version of the help that is accessible through the app. So if trying to search that on your phone, it's just too small a screen, you can go here on your computer and find all of the help articles that way. And then the Libby video tutorials is a really incredible resource we have linked right here. This is managed by OverDrive. And if I scroll to the top, you'll see here, it's actually library staff training. So this is something they've created to teach us, the librarians, how to help you set up Libby. However, it is not like library degree level or anything. It is super basic how-to videos. So there's a bunch of subjects over here that you can choose from. So like if you are trying to learn how to use the audiobooks in Libby, you could choose audiobooks, and then it gives me 4 videos. Oh, well, I'm having trouble with the audiobook player. I open it and I don't know what these 20 different buttons mean. You can open this video, and it may or may not load. It didn't want to earlier down here in the basement. If I press play, there you go. It starts this little 1.5 minute video. I'm going to pause it so you don't hear her talking to you, but it'll talk you through all of the details of what does this button do? What does this play button do? How does this work? How do I open the table of contents? To navigate your own. Shh, quiet. All right. So these are really great if you are a visual learner and if you want to have OverDrive essentially is curating these videos so that you can see what it's going to look like exactly on your screen, and you can walk through different details on how certain functions work. Okay, the last resource I want to talk to you about is, no surprise, your librarians. We are here to help you, and we are very happy to help you with borrowing our digital books. We don't just want them to sit there and no one borrow them because they don't know how. So if you are having any problems with your device, with your Libby, with your Hoopla, etc., please reach out to us. We're happy to assist you. We are all trained in how to help someone get Libby or another device or another application set up on your device, but we have varying degrees of knowledge with troubleshooting. So I do recommend, give us a call, send us an email, try to schedule so that I or somebody else with as much experience as me is available to sit down with you. I've been working with Libby since it debuted in 2016. So I'm very familiar with it. I've gone through a lot of the troubleshooting with it as it's grown over the years. And if there are things I don't know how to fix, which it happens, I do have contacts with OverDrive to help us reach out to technical support and get help figuring out why your device is doing some random weird thing because it's in a mood. That said, I beg you, please, if you can come to the library in person with your device, do it. I have done tech support over the phone. I will continue to do tech support over the phone, but it is harder for you and it's harder for me because we're both sitting there not being able to see what we're looking at on each other's screens. So if that's our only option, we'll get through it together. But if you can pop over here with your device, it's also just so much nicer to sit down. You can ask me more questions. I can point out, here's where we're going on your screen. This is exactly what I'm doing, that you can see how it's working. And usually that will result in a better experience for you getting your device up and running. If it is a small thing, like I don't know my library barcode, I can't find my card, I can't remember it, or I'm trying to I had this earlier, I'm trying to log into Hoopla and it's not liking my email, but it also says my card already has an account. What do I do? That's the kind of thing. If you give me a call, shoot me an email, talk to the librarian, we can troubleshoot that remotely. That's no problem. We can help you get your barcode. If you do get a message from Libby that says there's something wrong with your account, call us. We'll figure out if it's something you need to come in for. If it's a card renewal is the most common thing. And then, yeah, you do have to come in to show us your driver's license, prove that you are still a human in existence on this plane. And then we'll get that set up for you. Okay, I think I am finally done yammering at you all. So we are going to transition to our Q&A section at this point. I'm going to invite you guys to ask me any questions about what I covered tonight or general questions about Libby. If you do have one of those troubleshooting questions, let's schedule another time to talk about that. Just again, especially for those on Zoom, I'd love to be able to look at your device and see what's happening. Thank you everyone for the thanks in the chat. I'm so glad it was helpful. We haven't done something like this in quite a while, so I was really excited to give it a try, especially because the OverDrive app was just sunset in May. I lost my timeline a little bit there, but I knew we'd have some new users trying to adjust to this, and I wanted to give you a chance to see how great it can be for you. Libby is so user-friendly, especially compared to the old OverDrive app. It really doesn't want to let you struggle at anything, so it would constantly be like, here's something you can do to help. Here's what you might be missing with your filters. Don't forget that hold. I at least need that. I need those constant, oh yeah, that thing I was supposed to do. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night.